Κυρίες και κύριοι, μαζί μας είναι ο Σύμβουλος του Πρωθυπουργού και ο εκπρόσωπος του Υπουργείου Εξωτερικών του Κατάρ, ο Dr. Ματζέν Μπιν Μοχάμεντ Ανσάρι. Dr. Ansari, thank you for joining us today.
It's my pleasure. Thank you for having me.
Today is actually the last of the 4-day ceasefire period, expecting the last part of the 50 Israeli hostages deal to be fulfilled. However, there are reports that there are reservations on both sides, both the Israeli side as well as the Hamas side, regarding the list of the Israeli and Palestinian prisoners. So, do you have any idea what is the reason behind that?
As we have succeeded in the past 3 days, there was a very difficult moment on the second day. We stay very much determined to make sure that this fourth day goes also without obstacles, and hopefully by getting the last batch out today, we will be able to start talking about the extension period according to the provision within the agreement itself.
Well, thank you for actually mentioning that. You said extension. Is there going to be an extension following the 4-day ceasefire, completing today? I mean, has it actually been succeeded? Has it actually been agreed something that there will be an extension of that?
The language of the original agreement included a provision that an extension of days can be granted once Hamas can present a list of extra 10 hostages per day, and that would translate into a day of extension. We are, of course, waiting for the fourth day batch to come out today and the prisoners to be released on the Israeli side. Mm-hmm. And when that happens, we can start exchanging the list of the fifth day. We are confident that with the proof of concept that happened in the past 3 days, and hopefully by the batch that will be out today, this would increase the likelihood of the extension. The operations room here in Doha is working around the clock, relaying information in real time, and hopefully by midnight tonight we can bring you the good news. However, nothing is agreed upon yet. Nothing has been finalized. We are, as I said, waiting for the fourth batch, and then we can start talking about the extension of at least 1 day.
So, Dr. Ansari, allow me to make an assumption here. So, it's the ball is actually on the Hamas court. Is that correct?
Both sides have commitments to abide by for the extension, and these commitments, as I said, are undergoing at the moment pending the release of the current batch. So I would say that there are commitments on both sides and obligations on both sides, which we expect to see fully rendered by the end of the day.
Now, the intention of furthering this hostage prisoner deal from both sides seems to be positive. However, the Israeli Prime Minister said that following the ceasefire, the IDF operations will continue. So, do you have anything to comment on that? Do you think that this may be an obstacle in furthering this deal?
Obviously, the provision within the deal focuses on extending the current humanitarian pause, and therefore, by definition, that means not going back to operations in Gaza. We are hopeful that we would be able to immediately make that extension part of the end of this day, and therefore be able to move directly into the extension to the pause, and therefore safeguard against any escalation on the ground or resumption of hostilities. As I said, it's a very complicated process. It's a very delicate process. There is heightened emotion on both sides. There is a lot of lack of trust on both sides, but we were able thus far to bring all of these people back to their families, and I believe there is a responsibility on all of us to continue with this until we have all of those back with their families and out of harm's way.
Actually, we actually need to congratulate Qatar and all of you that were involved in this agreement because you have secured it. However, there are American officials who have actually said that there are other groups other than Hamas that may have some of the hostages captives in their possession. So, can actually Hamas guarantee the safe return of the Israeli hostages?
Obviously, we as you heard, we have been getting reports from day one that not all the hostages are with Hamas. However, this period, one of the main reasons was to ascertain the situations of those hostages, to get more of them into safety and within the pipeline to be released in the confines of the current agreement. The success of getting all the 3 batches out now gives us a belief that we can also be hopeful that the rest of the hostages can be out in the same manner. However, this is a war zone. The level of death and destruction in Gaza is unbelievable, and one would imagine that movement and collecting information in Gaza would not be easy in the current parameters, but we are hopeful that through the information we will be getting later today, we can at least raise the hopes of finding more hostages that will be released within the extension of the agreement.
Dr. Al-Ansari, I would just like to ask for your opinion. Once this exchange, both of prisoners as well as hostages, is complete, what do you think is going to be the future of this armed conflict? Because Israel seems to be determined to fight on. Hamas doesn't want to give up. So are we actually closer to a 2-state solution, or are we going to go back into an armed conflict again?
Obviously, Yanni, any reasonable person would tell you, and I'm quite sure that you already assume that this is a very difficult time to assume that we can talk now about a viable solution to the Palestinian plight, and the situation is certainly not one that brings about optimism. However, we are hopeful that this humanitarian pause would lead to more sustainable pauses, and hopefully would lead to a ceasefire, and from then and post this conflict we can start as an international community, after the gravity of what has happened as a result of this conflict. I think there is a renewed understanding of the need to reach a solution to the Palestinian issue. This is not the first iteration of violence. It will not be the last iteration of violence until we have a just and lasting solution for the Palestinian question. And that can only be done when there is a political will within the international community to pressure both sides, and especially the Israelis, to end, first of all, this war, but also to move towards talks for peace. But our focus right now is on the short term, which is getting the hostages out, getting the prisoners out, lessening the severity of this war, and finding and building the basis for a sustainable truce.
Now, I know that you have dealt with both sides, both with Hamas and Israel. Is Hamas actually determined, or if you like, willing to give up the arms and maybe sit down in a negotiation table discussing the possibility of actually having a Palestinian state?
We have been working on mediation between Hamas and Israel since 2006, and I can tell you that we have a lot of optimism that is related to our ability to mediate between both sides. We have averted war so many times in the past couple of years, including this year alone, where we handled at least 2 other mediations between both sides and reached agreements without it resulting in direct conflict or a military confrontation between both sides. So we are very hopeful that when the situation allows for peace, that we are able to relay messages between both sides, but not only relay messages, but create the discussion and the negotiation around peace. And we believe that any peoples around the world, whether it be the Palestinians or the Israelis, are concerned with living in safety and prosperity and providing hope to their children. And the problem here, the main problem here, was always the lack of hope. The lack of hope on the Palestinian side of their children seeing a state, living in a state where they can live safely, securely, prosperly, and have dreams for the future. And the lack of hope in permanent security on the other side in Israel. And therefore it is our job as mediators, but also the international community, to work together in producing this hope, manufacturing this hope for both the people of Palestine and Israel.
Dr. Al-Ansari, before we sum up this interview, I would just like to ask you, Qatar has always been on the forefront of the hostage accord and is still playing a crucial role in the negotiations between all parties. But the thing is, you have come to a point where you have initiated these negotiations talks following the 7th of October attack from Hamas to Israel. And some of the people around the world, be it American or Israelis, criticize Qatar that maybe it has initiated this conflict, or on the other side, has it actually been the one who has come to provide a solution, a viable solution? So where do you stand with that?
We have been very clear from day one. Since 2006, when the United States administration at the time approached us and asked us to open a line of communication with Hamas, we have been undeterred in seeking peace between both sides. We have, as I said, succeeded so many times in mediating between both sides. There is an unbelievable need for a mediator that is able to speak to both sides, that has the trust of both sides, and that has the political will to take on all of that heat and all of that criticism and the accusations that are held against us, while at the same time remain undeterred in seeking peace. I know that there are a lot of people around the world now that are hoping to see an end to this crisis, and there is the only way towards peace, the only way to end this crisis is on the negotiating table, and that can only happen if you have a viable mediation that can speak to both sides openly. We will not be deterred with the misinformation about our role as mediator, with all the disinformation about us and about what we do. We will not be deterred by the challenges of the mediation itself. We will continue on the road for peace, and I hope that along the way, those who are criticizing right now what we are doing will see the humanitarian value and the value for peace of being a mediator and working as a mediator and having a mediator in such a conflict. We, as I said, we have the political will for it from our leadership. Our leadership is doing this not for the sake of our own national interest, but to make sure that our children and our children's children have a prosperous and secure world to live in without the scary images that we are seeing out of Gaza today that are probably radicalizing a whole generation. We need to work together towards peace, and we need all to stop politicizing this issue, to stop adhering to political polarization over this issue, and focus on the human story in stopping this conflict.
Dr. Ansari, thank you very much for being with us.